Here's Michelle. Yay.
Hi, everyone. Sorry about that. And I've used Hopin a million times before, so my apologies. Welcome, everyone. My name is Michelle Arrington. I serve as the co-chair for the Government Affairs Committee for the DeKalb County Chamber of Commerce. And so I want to welcome Representative Becky Evans. Thank you so much for joining us today. For this important discussion on economic and workforce development. I know we are also probably expecting Senator Anderson. She hasn't joined us yet, but once she does, we'll add her into the discussion. So I'm just going to I know you gave a brief bio, but I do want to read a little bit more of your bio just to tell a little bit about your history and your start. So Representative Evans serves as a state representative for House District 83, which includes portions of DeKalb County. She graduated from Emory University with a political science degree and then worked for 11 years as an educator and project manager for HBO and Company, a healthcare technology company. Becky and her husband raised 3 adult children, all in DeKalb County and all who attended Druid Hills High School. And she has dedicated her life to leading through service as a nonprofit co-founder, community volunteer, political aide, advocate, and mother. Becky is humbled and honored to serve as a state representative and looks forward to going to work for her district at the state capitol. So Representative Evans, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Michelle. Yes, thank you so much.
So part of our committee, our purpose is to really speak on behalf of the business interests of DeKalb County, ensuring that the county remains competitive locally and statewide. At the heart of the Metro Atlanta region, DeKalb County really has considerable economic development assets, new businesses, entrepreneurs. It's home to Emory and CDC, very diverse county as well, and easy access to bus and rail transit. And when we talk about fostering economic development and job creation, DeKalb County in general is really charged with 3 things: improving the business client, revitalizing corridors and employment centers, and enhancing the quality of place. So when we talk about economic development, we hear that word sometimes, Representative Evans. Senator Anderson is here as well. So we're going to give me 1 second. Senator Anderson, let me see if she can hear us. I think you have to refresh your page. That's what I had to do. And then share your audio and video. And let me drop that in the chat. But as I do that and get her added, Representative Evans, tell us, what is your definition of economic development? We hear that word, but what does that really mean?
Well, when I think about economic development, I think about having a community where every person can prosper and thrive and live out their full potential. And I think that's basically when I think about economic development. I think it's not just about the economy. It's about the people in our economy finding, good jobs where they can reach their full potential. Yes.
That's so true. That also is, we're going to get into the workforce development aspect, but you can't really have one without the other. So I know that you sit on the Economic Development and Tourism Committee. Can you tell us a little bit about what that committee does on the House side?
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you. So that was a new committee for me starting with this last session, economic development. I was very excited to be added to that committee. I will say that, to me, unfortunately, we did not really do the people's business this past year. The casino lobby was really trying to get this constitutional amendment for casino and horse racing and gambling, and that's really all that was in the background, and we didn't really talk about any other type of economic development in our committee. And so that's something that I'm not as excited. I'm actually not a proponent of casinos and horse racing, because I feel like when you in those places, there is a lot of, other untoward things can happen when you build those facilities, or, the rate of sex trafficking, can go up, things like that. I am open to sports betting. And that was something I actually spent quite a bit of time on, and trying to see if we did pass sports betting, if we could get that to go to needs-based aid. And we can talk more about that. But Georgia is one of 2 states that does not have needs-based aid. And I know that was one of the questions you brought up. So I'm happy to talk more about that now, or just to leave it at that. One other thing with economic development, something I'm very interested in, I've described my district to you. It runs kind of right through the middle of DeKalb, swath of Central and South DeKalb. And so I am a big believer in parks and trails, and I think that trails are an amenity, and they are part of economic development. And parts of DeKalb have really done well by that. Brookhaven is an excellent example, where where the trails are, the housing prices increase, and everyone can get out and be safe, and move their bodies, and and anyhow, I would love to see more trail development in South DeKalb, especially around South DeKalb Mall. And I've done a lot of work in a park called N.H. Scott Park, and there's a creek there called Doolittle Creek. And I have a vision, and several people in the community, have this vision too. Wouldn't it be awesome to be able to have some type of multi-use trail going from South DeKalb Mall all the way to the South River along Doolittle Creek? So anyway, I think that's a different type of economic development we all don't think about, but I think there's a lot of potential there. And so I would love to get folks together to work with our commissioners and with the Side DeKalb and with you all to, have a discussion about that. Yes.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, because one of the things I was asking about your committee, but I would love to also, you talk about your overall goals and objectives for the committee. And you hit on a little bit about, what do you see for 2022? And what would you, ideally love to see your committee be more involved in, so as it trickles down back to DeKalb County?
Well, I would love for that committee to pass out a bill for needs-based aid to go, for sports betting to provide money for needs-based aid. That would be one thing I would like to see. I'd love to see, as far, and this is statewide, so I'm trying, so that I think that money would definitely help DeKalb students, and we can talk more about those statistics about how many need needs-based aid. But and then I guess I would say I'm interested in seeing what the state could do. Could the state help provide funding for some trails in DeKalb? That's what I would be interested in. I want to hear from you all. What are your priorities for me to advocate for on the Economic Development Committee? Yes.
So we have a question in the chat from Tony Hannah, and she asked, with the great resignation, what are your thoughts and strategies on helping folks get back to work, to higher paying jobs, and fulfilling those jobs?
Well, I think we need to listen to their concerns, or do surveys on their concerns and try to address them. So if it's at our, essential worker level, we need to look at their pay, make sure we're compensating them for being on the front lines, bearing they've been taking the brunt of the COVID pandemic. And so I would say, addressing pay. And then childcare is a huge issue. I think, it's been this vicious cycle where we don't have enough childcare centers open, so people don't go back to work. But then, but the childcare centers, they need enough families to be using the centers. And so I was very hopeful, and I'm not sure it's going to happen. I don't know this, but that some of our money that Georgia received, the federal money, would go to supplement childcare centers to provide their a baseline of funding for them to reopen safely. So those are two areas there. And I would welcome, Tony, to hear. I'd love for this to be a dialogue too, as far as how you think we can help, at the state on getting folks back to work as well.
Yeah, and definitely as you're in this session, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat, and I'll read them as we move forward. So I know a lot of businesses, they face zoning issues as well. If we're talking about zoning codes, is that a county issue? Is that something we can address at the state level? And how do you advocate for that?
I'm sorry, what is the question on zoning?
Is it something that, I know it's a county issue, but it's something as well that we could advocate for on the state level? And what's the best way to address that?
Well, I don't know. I really believe in local control on zoning, so I don't know if I want to advocate for the state to take that over, frankly. But I will say I am one of the questions that some people talked about is, how would you want to change zoning in DeKalb? And I would just say I am a big believer in density near transit. And in that Candler Road corridor, if we are able to get bus rapid transit, which is on the DeKalb transportation plan, we'll need to have, decide where the stations go. And there would need to be a great, rethinking of the type of zoning around those transit stations. But I would hope we could have, multi-use in those areas and then have some density and create some walkable communities around our transit.
And as we talk about transit, I know that's a huge area, of economic development. What else will it take to really, I guess, push the county forward in regards to that development and really making sure that we have policies around transit that can really elevate DeKalb County? That was a long question.
Yeah. Yeah, I think yeah.
Specifically, I was just asking around transit and making sure as we look at DeKalb County, what else can we do to help revitalize those areas?
Yes, well, I would hope that we could, do more investment with our small businesses. That's a wonderful opportunity. And when you look at the communities where people do, want to live, they gravitate towards these areas that are walkable. And so I would want to, have investments in small. And when I say that, it means like maybe you do training within, you have training programs and maybe mentorship programs with established small businesses, maybe in other parts of the county that, helping in a certain community. That would be of key importance, I think. So I'm more interested in all, and I want to get people from DeKalb to start their own small businesses. So, doing investment in local people, creating jobs in the local community. That would be a priority for me. It's a priority. Yeah.
And, over the past 2 years, of course, during COVID, we saw various state governments just around the country use funds for workforce development. And so some of them directed it towards different areas. And I think you hit on this a little bit. But, what was the state's, I guess, initial response to the workforce development when it hit last year, and where do we stand now?
What was the state's initial response?
Yes.
To workforce development?
Right. And any funds that we received, on a federal level that we were able to use or.
Well, I know, they've put the money back and they basically have allocated key areas. One is broadband. Georgia's has a big swath of, rural Georgia that does not have access to broadband. And basically broadband is, infrastructure. And so one big pot of money is going to broadband. And then another big pot of money is going to infrastructure like water and sewer infrastructure. And I do know DeKalb has applied for water and sewer infrastructure money, a big grant from them on that. And so basically what they did is the state took their money and they created a grants program. So local municipalities and counties and nonprofits applied for funding. And I don't think that's been reallocated yet. That hasn't been allocated yet. That'll come out in 2022. The deadline for submitting all those was at the end of November. So we'll see where that money goes. Yes.
We're going to take a moment to welcome Senator Tonya Anderson. She has joined us now. Good morning. How are you doing, Senator Anderson?
I am well. How is everyone? I hope everyone is well and had a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Yes, thank you so much. We're
persevering, right?
Yes, absolutely. We're here in the Economic and Workforce Development Group. And so I will ask you a couple questions that I asked Representative Evans just to get you joined into our conversation. So I know that you currently sit on the Georgia State Economic and Development Tourism Committee. So can you tell us a little bit about your committee on the Senate side and what you all do?
So as a Senate Economic Development and Tourism Committee, we look to pass legislation that will expand and grow our districts, our counties specifically. And I represent portions of DeKalb, Rockdale, and Newton. All three are in the film industry. All counties are in the film industry. And it's the East Corridor, and it's just so prime for growth and ready for those things that will bring about economic development and change for what we've been used to seeing. It helps us to expand the opportunities, even for our corporate small businesses, as well as our corporate corporations, as our large corporations. So that's what we do. We expand the opportunities for economic growth. And I see it happening right before my eyes every day.
I saw some facts I looked up. It says that we're number 2 in this state for film industry. And then our tourism has a $60.8 billion impact on Georgia's economy, generating more than $3.1 billion in tax revenue. We are seeing, Georgia just in general blow up in regards to the film industry. How can we continue to, advocate for DeKalb County, for everybody to start shooting every movie and television show, in the county, because that really does bring in that development that you talk about. What are some of you all's ideas? And I'll ask you both in regards to looking at that tourism and then just that film and entertainment industry as well.
So I think, let me back up just a few minutes, Michelle. So I'm fortunate to be on the Economic Development and Tourism Committee. And I'll say that because of my background as a city councilwoman and as a mayor. Cities are the ones who bring, your downtown development authorities, your downtown, those are the things that attract the film industry. And so I encourage our city officials and locals to do that. And then we have the most beautiful cities in Georgia, from the city of Decatur to Stone Mountain to Lithonia to, Stonecrest. We just have the most beautiful cities in the county, in the state. So in DeKalb County. So that brings from cities, it's an attraction because a lot of them are looking for sometimes they're looking for vintage, sometimes they're looking for just the a little bit of excitement and adventure to add to their antique antebellum feel. And so we have that. We offer that in so many, pretty much mostly all of the cities in DeKalb. And so that's a start. And then the county partnership with our cities expands it all the more. I have not seen, and I know DeKalb has just, been blossoming and blooming in this film industry, where other counties probably have, thrived for a long time, but we bring something unique. We bring something different. We bring culture, a different culture. We bring a different international. We have an international feel in our county, and that's what film industries are looking for. And I'm just so excited about how it's going to grow DeKalb, how it's going to spotlight DeKalb, put us in a place that, when folks come to Georgia, they want to come to DeKalb. So keep doing that at your local levels, cities, and partnering with the county so that we can continue to expand DeKalb. And then I'll say, Michelle, you have the best delegation in the state. I don't know one state representative or senator who will not advocate for DeKalb in a very, very strong way. We've had that sidebar conversation before, so I think everybody gets it. But you have the best delegation in the Georgia General Assembly.
And thank you, Senator Anderson and Michelle. I do want to also add another part of tourism, our tourism draw that's really great for just the health of our community, are our wonderful outdoor natural resources. So Stone Mountain, Arabia Mountain are such treasures,
Yes.
and they're, that granite vein, moving through the ground, and all the, amazing opportunities for outdoor recreation throughout DeKalb County are so valuable, and a big draw to people wanting to live here, having the opportunity to be out, and we have a lot of beautiful parks with, forests where people can be out and enjoy nature, and then be, right in their, go easily right back to their community. So I would love to see more connectivity among among communities and their outdoor recreation areas. But I do think that's a huge amenity and a big reason why people come to DeKalb County too, for our outdoor parks. And yes.
When we talk about people coming into the county, we have a question in the chat I'm going to ask. It's around affordable housing, right? So you can't have, of course, the conversation of affordable housing and economic development, workforce development. People have to be able to live where they be able to afford to live where they work. And that draws people to a county. The question is, what can be done to ensure that affordable housing and economic development go hand in hand? One is usually at the expense of the other.
That is a great question, Mr. Calvin Green. I appreciate that. And I'm jumping in very quickly, Michelle, because for 12 years, I managed an affordable housing complex as a property manager, and then as a regional manager of several properties throughout the state of Georgia, from Rome all the way to Savannah. So my background, that is my background, part of my background. So how do we do that? We have to find the right developers who are willing to, is my camera okay, Michelle? Am I doing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So we have to find the right developers. We have to have conversations with our city and county officials, so that, and that's the major part of it, having the right developers who are willing to bring in affordable housing. And affordable does not mean, it means affordable. It means what you can afford. So people, when you have the conversation, we have to educate what that means, educate people on what that means. And affordable does not mean no income. It means that I can afford to pay based on the income that I have. And it has to be affordable, and to keep homelessness off the street. I mean, there just has to be a huge partnership. Have the conversations with our city and county officials, bringing in the right developers. What do we want to see? Because what we've seen Decatur flip and turn upside down. We even have one in Lithonia, downtown Lithonia, that I worked on prior to leaving and going to the General Assembly. We partner with our housing authority. So there are so many partnerships out there. We just have to have the right conversation with the right people in the room, helping them to understand that we're building our community so that it can thrive and it can last, that we can leave a legacy, leave something lasting to the community for it to grow. Because if we don't have the right developments, no one will live there. No one will be there. We'll have ghost towns. And so we have to put forth that effort, in this conversation, and understanding that we connect the dots. We don't live in silos. We have to connect the dots. And if one city is growing and another one is dying, then there's no trail of growth from Clarkson to Stone Mountain to Lithonia. There has to be, and then there's the ARC. We have the ARC. We have to use all of our resources to make sure that, hey, if Stone Mountain uses this developer, or if Decatur uses this developer, let's look and see if it's possible, or what can they do. So that's the biggest part of the conversation about affordable housing.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I would just like to add to that, something I'm very interested in and encouraged by is the use of land banks and land trusts to create affordable housing. So that is where the municipality or the county own the land. And so I think that's an excellent investment for them, for the county or the city to own the land, and then find the right developers to create the housing, and then the people that live in that housing, they can develop equity in the house portion of the property, and so they still, that raises their income by being able to deduct their mortgage payments and everything, but when they leave, the county still owns that land, and another person who needs affordable housing can get in there. So DeKalb has kind of been behind on that. Atlanta's a little bit ahead, but we can catch up, and I'm excited about that prospect as well.
So I want to go a little bit, and I know we started a little bit about workforce development, but I wanted to ask some questions around that. And prepping for this, I think I read that last year, I think the state created a study committee to address workforce issues and the future of work. I'm probably gonna put you all on the spot. What came out of that study? Can you update us a little bit about that?
I'm not aware. Was it a House or Senate? It must have been a House study committee, because
well, I'm not sure. I think, unfortunately, Michelle, there are a lot of study committees, and if we're not serving on them,
right,
I'm afraid I'm not up on that same thing. I do know we have some good news to talk about workforce development in DeKalb that Senator Anderson was very key in helping obtain. So I'll let her talk about it.
That was my next question. What have you all been working on?
I want to make sure everyone knows about this Transportation and Logistics Training Center. So Senator Anderson, I'll let you talk about that.
So a couple of things before we get to that. Workforce development, and I'm thinking about maybe the study committee. I don't know if it was on
I read it was about the future of work and workforce issues, and the governor appointed a study committee, so I think it involved a number of people, but I may be.
Well, and okay. Actually, I'm not sure that committee has released its report, because I think it was a House committee, and Representative Angelica Calcio is serving on that. But they just met over the summer, so I don't think they've released their report back to us on that.
Okay, so then the other part of that I was going to say is that, our technical colleges, which is where Representative Evans is pointing her finger for me to go, not literally pointing, but in her thoughts, pointing her finger for me to go, is that our technical colleges and our technical centers have been a staple throughout our state and our community. What's happening in my district, it's actually in my district, off of Marbert Road, there is a technical college through Georgia Piedmont. Mm-hmm. It's a training center, and what it is it was a trucking. It was Martyr, all of those the trucking, large truck training for large trucks. So it is now, it is expanded to a huge a huge school. And it is bringing in jobs. I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted with so many different text messages, but it's bringing in jobs that will help with truck driving, all of our more of a technical feel around that, because right now there's such a shortage, and there's such a shortage in so many areas from corporations and organizations that are looking for drivers. And even now, as we're waiting for shelves to be stocked in stores, there are a shortage of drivers. So this is a training center, brand new facility. The county has skin in the game. The CEO put up about 5. The state put up about 4 or so. I'm going to get the exact facts before I get out of this conversation, so that because I should be able to just spit this out and it roll like gravy or water or whatever. But what's happening is we have to train in order to and give people an opportunity for jobs. So that's the biggest thing. We're training them, and then we're giving them jobs. And it's right in DeKalb, in Senate District 43, right down the street. And I'm so super excited to have Georgia Piedmont on board, because we approached them and they said, why not? Let's invest in this as well. So it's going to be great for DeKalb.
And they're a great partner of the chamber as well. Dr. Irvin Clark sits on the Government Affairs Committee. So we'll put him on the spot, our next committee meeting, Senator Anderson, and tell him to make, but he always amplifies and tells us everything. But it's so good to know. I'm sorry, Representative Evans, please.
I just wanted to say, I just found the number. So the state did invest $5.77 million in this facility. So that's our tax dollars coming back to DeKalb County for our future of our workforce. So I'm very pleased that we accomplished that in our budget this year.
Absolutely. One of the questions that we received prior to the start of this, we talked about workforce development. Since we're talking about higher education, also with that conversation comes student loan debt. What would you all recommend to really help improve that overall outcome of student debt after pursuing advanced education? What can we do?
Well, that's an excellent question. And that is something that I did spend a lot of time learning about last year. This past session, working with college counselors and working with the Georgia Metro Chamber and several other colleagues that are very concerned on this issue. So Georgia is one of 2 states that lacks broad need-based aid. 75% of Georgians support funding a needs-based aid scholarship for all college students. Nearly 112,000 students deal with unmet financial need. The median family income for students at the most selective colleges and universities exceeds $100,000. However, it is below $40,000 in 17 of the 26 colleges in the university system. So basically, Hope is wonderful. Hope has done an amazing job at retaining the best and brightest here in Georgia, but that Hope money goes to the top 3 colleges, the big institutions, University of Georgia, Georgia State, and Georgia Tech, and that does not go to all our other great schools throughout the state. And so, unfortunately, Hope is basically, it ends. And you look at the families, the students, and what their family income is, and basically, it ends up being more wealth-based. And so, we definitely need some needs-based aid. So I've already alluded to one idea was for, if we were to pass work spending, for that money to go to needs-based aid. But another that would require, a lot of cooperation, because a lot of people have a lot of ideas about where any extra money from that should go. So another idea that's very viable is Georgia does have a loan program, a student loan program, and its repayment level is not as high as, it's basically one of the last things. Most students of lower income, they apply for Pell Grants, the federal Pell Grants, they apply, for school grants and everything. And then the Georgia loans are one of the last things they apply for, and they're often not repaid as high a level. So one of the ideas is that let's go ahead and convert the loans to grants, because that is a line item that is in our budget right now. And but they just we wouldn't say that they would be repaid sometime in the future. They would just be flat out grants. So that is something that I'll be advocating and working on this session in our budget.
So I'll add to that, if I may, Michelle, that unfortunately, here we go, Georgia. It's only 2 states, Georgia and New Hampshire, that do not fund need-based financial aid for students. So one of the things that we can consider is expanding access to dual enrollment. That will help offset, because right now we have some schools and colleges, high school students who are in dual enrollment programs. And so by the time they get out of high school, they already have, 2 years of college already under their belt. But I also feel like expanding dual enrollment, it helps prepare them for career opportunities. They already kind of know by then what they want to do. Post-secondary institutions, will recognize those certifications and be willing to give them, scholarship funds. So that's one thing we can do. The other thing is that House Bill 259 was introduced by Representative Rhonda Bernot, who is a member of the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus, which I chair. And it will provide that need-based scholarships or grants to Georgia students whose households income is less than $75,000. Because what we know happens is after college, there are other expenses besides, tuition. There's housing, there's food. You have to live. And so I also think that consideration, we've tried several different ways to give consideration to first generation college students, or to students who are of the fallen law enforcement community or fallen first responders. I'll just put it in one category, fallen first responders community. We've been advocating for it and pushing in different angles from different ways. And of course, that has failed, but we won't stop trying. Another thing that I think we can do is find a way to just allow for grant monies, to be given to consideration for grant monies be given to given on a needs-based grant and scholarship opportunities, because it's getting to the point where our people can't afford college, and they just say, well, I'll just do something different, or I don't want to go to college, or it's just different reasons why. But we should make it easier and not harder, for people to access or live their American dream, because everyone has a dream, everyone has a vision for their life. And I think that we should make it a lot easier. So those are my suggestions. Hopefully you wrote them down, Michelle.
I did.
With Senator Anderson's suggestion beside it. No, I'm just kidding.
And, as we kind of talk about the constituents and what people need, I'm interested to hear from you all. What do you hear from your constituents, businesses, the people in general in DeKalb County in regards to addressing work shortages and then wage issues as well? I know that's a big one.
So wage issues, we have consistently been advocating for an increase in wages. Georgia is still, here we go, just last 2, 3, 4, and it's so embarrassing to a point where we tout being number one for business, but we should be number one for a living wage and for equity and for justice and for criminal justice reform, which is where the past few years is where I've been. Well, we should be number one in education, so many different areas. And we're worried about being number one for business, but we're losing people because of the educational and deficit, the education deficit, because we don't invest in the right things. And so I think that economic development comes when we take a serious look at where we are. What are the needs of the people? If we're not serving the people, then we're doing something wrong. And I can tell you your delegation, DeKalb delegation, is serving the people. I'm not talking about DeKalb at all. I'm not talking about your representatives at all. I'm talking about everybody else that doesn't live. No, I'm just kidding. Everybody else that doesn't live in DeKalb. But the one thing that we have to look at is something that was mentioned in the chat is how we're losing people, because of education. Companies are not going to come where there is no where education is not a priority. And so we have to make sure that we're educating people. We're giving them a chance to have quality of life. Meaning, for me, in this criminal justice reform space, Senate Bill 288, Senate Bill 105, Senate Bill 288 gives, is expungement for the community, but for the legal community, they say restrict and seal. Either way, that person's life is given now another chance, a new start, a new chapter, because people actually do want to work. Then you have Senate Bill 105, which advocates for a shorter probation time. And then I'm now pushing forward with Senate Bill 257, which is forthcoming in the session, Representative Evans, which is another criminal justice reform bill that will allow people, it adds to that to say, okay, if you've been trafficked, if you've been a victim of trafficking, then you should have your record restricted and sealed. If you've been, just so many different things, we have to create real opportunities. We have to create we can't just continue to say, oh, we're number one, we're doing this, we're doing that. We have to create real opportunities. We have to find a way, make a way, as Representative John Lewis said, get in the way and get in good trouble. Because at the end of the day, if we don't have people, we don't have a state. We don't have a population. We don't have an economic development. We don't have growth. We have none of that. And we don't have people. So one of the things, of course, as I said, is the living wage, going through our system to overhaul it, criminal justice reform, and then education. We have to make those a priority, because if we don't, we won't have a state.
Right. And also, Michelle, just to add to what Senator Anderson is saying, one thing I want to backtrack just a little bit that we are doing well in Georgia, maybe we need to do a better job talking about it, is in our technical colleges, you can go to technical college and get an education for free, for tuition free. I mean, you still have some fees your first 2 years. So we need to do a better job of communicating that out in the public. And they've made a list of the 11 most, the professions that are growing the most. And if students go in to take training courses for those professions, they will, they can have a, tuition free and get that, the 2-year degree for free. So that's a really good thing. And the other thing that we're starting to be better about, developing apprenticeship programs. And this kind of addresses the wage issue too, because you need to really have the skill in something, and then you can command the higher wage. And so I'm very supportive of the technical colleges working with businesses to develop, and DeKalb County schools to develop more apprenticeship programs. Yes, and along with what Mr. Green was saying and what Senator Anderson was talking about criminal justice reform, one thing I'm very interested in is how can we prevent crime? What can we do to, especially, many of the crimes are right now. I sit on the House Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee, and we've been having crime hearings this summer and this fall. And unfortunately, a lot of our crime is done by juveniles. And so one of the benefits of getting to be representative is I was asked to serve on the Juvenile Justice Council for DeKalb County. And they have many excellent programs that are helping turn around the lives of our young people. But one thing that we're getting ready to do is to work with the DeKalb County schools on on a restorative practices program, a program in middle schools. And this is something, before I ran, this is something I was learning a lot about restorative justice programs. And so I'm happy that we were able to get some people who could do some research on restorative practice programs in schools and connect them with DeKalb County. And there are two nonprofits that do really good work. The Deep Center is in Savannah, and the other one is the Georgia Conflict Center in Athens. And anyhow, we have a proposal. It's not finalized right now, but where they're going to go into the two DeKalb middle schools that have the most referrals to the juvenile justice system and work on restorative practices instead, because our system right now is punitive. Well, it's not true. It's a hybrid, but we need what restorative practices does is it focuses on what the harm is done and how to repair the harm, and it's a very you work on preparing the relationships, and it's a process of great. Teachers have to be trained. The whole school culture, it needs to get involved. And so you have to have the schools that want to do that. But that's something I think that's so important because, juveniles don't just turn to crime for the heck of it. I mean, there are all these reasons behind that. And one of the big important things we need to do is to help people learn how to negotiate conflict and how to deal with conflict and how to deal with feelings in healthy ways. And, But the restorative justice practice it's a proven method. I commend, I bring to you, if you want to go look at the Georgia Conflict Center, they're doing really good work. And I'm hopeful about this one program that will be a pilot in our two middle schools. And once we have those names ready to be released, I'll let you know about that.
I think you all said two very important things. We don't look at the holistic approach. So we can't talk about, workforce development if juveniles are in jail and that next generation of workers, their records aren't being expunged. They're on probation forever. And so we kind of sometimes silo conversations. Criminal justice is over here, but you can't talk about workforce development, economic development. It really all pieces together. So thank you, Calvin, for asking that question, because even, reaching out to youth is letting them know about the apprenticeship programs and they can go to technical school for free for first 2 years. So what are we doing as well to kind of amplify those messages, especially for businesses that have a gap and they're looking for that next generation of workers? I want to talk a little bit about small businesses because, we always hear about small businesses, and in the last 2 years have been hard on all businesses, but especially our small businesses. So as we look at small businesses in, DeKalb County, how do we, attract more small businesses? And then how do we make sure that they're accessing all the resources available to them on the state level or just in general?
I'm sorry, Michelle. The last part was how do we work with small businesses?
And how do we just make sure that they have access to information, access to resources, and what can they do to advocate for themselves on the state level?
So I think the chamber is an absolute best connection for small businesses. It's great for networking. It's great for finding resources. But the state has, there are resources there. So from a state perspective, I would say, how can they advocate that they would, I don't know if they have any partnerships of their own, but I would say the best way to advocate for there is Department of Community Affairs. There are certain grant programs, certain grant opportunities, and the chamber honestly is the best route. I don't know that they can maybe the Metro Atlanta Chamber or the Georgia Chamber. Those are avenues for open doors for networking and to finding more resources. I don't know of any on the state level. I mean, that other than that.
Yes, and I think and Decide DeKalb, I would they would be a good partner for us as well, in addition to the chamber. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I think what I would love to see, and and it may be happening some, and I welcome, you all telling me back what's, if some of this is happening, but I think that, just this encouraging, creating a program, for local small businesses, for municipalities, have a pot of money to invest in local small businesses, and then to have some type of mentorship program with other successful small businesses so they can, learn from someone who's been successful. I think that
Mhm.
that could be key, but make sure that the loans go to like keep it in DeKalb, like let's keep it in the neighborhood, so,
Now,
yeah.
there is a federal program that it is federal program for Georgia small businesses. It's Georgia Small Business Grants. I think might be a website or something you can Google, and it gives you, like, if you have less than 500 employees, or if you have more than 100, it gives you like a breakdown of the possibilities for small businesses. So it's, it goes from millions of dollars um, to different because people, a small business may be a daycare or pre-K or something. It could be, just different types. So that would be a great, it's a federal program, but it would be a great place to start with Googling grants for small businesses.
So looking forward to the 2022 session. We know you all have been working hard. You all just got out of special session. You probably have like 1 minute to catch your breath before you all go back. What are you looking forward to for 2022? What if you name 2 top things that you all are working on for next year?
Individually or collectively?
Both, actually. That's a great question. Individually, let's start with individually.
Yeah, so I've already said that I'm working on some criminal justice reform. I don't know how I got here, but I'm fine with it, and I actually love it. This is my 3rd bill on criminal justice reform for sure, and maybe some healthcare stuff. So those are the 2 things that I will be 2 right now that I can think of. There's probably more than that. It's just the 2 that are at the forefront of my mind. And then collectively, I know we will have to take a look at city and county and school board lines for redistricting. So that was just for state and federal. Going back, we will have county and school board on top of the 100,000, almost 200,000 pieces of legislation that will go through, or 250,000 pieces that'll go through legislative council and come out, who's the winner on top. A lot of what was not finished earlier this year's session will roll over to next year. So including possibly new bills that may come forward.
Yeah. Great. I'm excited, Senator Henderson. Thank you so much for your work, especially on the criminal justice reform. I've been so proud that we've moved forward you've been able to convince the legislature, has supported that, so that's fabulous. When you're in the minority party, you have to celebrate when legislation actually passes.
You do, because it's hard. It's harder when you're in the minority, and folks are looking at you like, why would you? It makes sense, but why would you want to do it? It's like, it's because we're serving the people. And it's the right thing to do. So you're right, Representative Evans. We have to celebrate small victories to get to the bigger, which leads to big victories.
Right. And then Michelle, as far as what I've been working on, there are several things. The 2 I've put the most time in on, one is an education bill for literacy, improving literacy. And one of the things, Georgia is actually at the national average, but really on average, only 1/3 of our students are really reading proficiently by 3rd grade. And it's just amazing to me that this is our statistic. So I've learned so much about what's happening within the Department of Education. A lot of good things are moving the needle forward. And but one of the things we're talking about is having this law to have used an evidence-based approach for literacy. So it's not just, and because apparently in the reading curriculum, the pendulum is swung back and forth between there's like whole child where you just, and excuse me, whole language versus just phonetics. And so so the evidence-based approach, you combine both of those, and then they've learned how important it is for teaching writing at a very early age too. And really for literacy, it's an ecosystem. You need to create an ecosystem from birth through, all the way through adulthood. So that's one thing. We're not ready for prime time yet, but that's something I'm working with Representative Matthew Gamble on. And there's a nonprofit called Science for Georgia, and they've been taking a lead in that. And the second thing is I have a resolution for sustainable materials management on calling on the Georgia Building Authority to create a robust sustainable materials management plan for state properties. So one of the things when I was elected, when I came to the Capitol, I was sad to see there's a lot of waste. We have a lot of food waste, and then we have a not very good recycling program. And so I'm very interested in the circular economy, as Georgia as a state getting better at that, and that means where, you use waste to as energy in other areas. And so, big picture wise, that means redoing Georgia's solid waste plan, which was last done in 2005. But so this is like just a small request for the Georgia Building Authority to work with all the properties down there on the Capitol campus and to come up with the plan to reduce our waste and improve efficiencies. So that's something I'm really excited about. And that is something I would love for our county to do, to pilot a program on doing composting food waste. And I've had a tour out at Seminole Landfill, and I think they're ready to take that on if we want them, to take that on. And so that's something I'm very interested in on this. But that's not really a state policy. That would be within the county. And then I had someone bring me a cemetery law bill, and I talked with Representative Oliver, who's a good attorney, and I was asking her for advice. She said cemetery law is very peculiar, and so but we're working with the attorney who represented a client, and then we have we actually one of the most powerful caucuses is in the General Assembly. I don't know I guess y'all can't answer me back. I know Senator Anderson knows. It's the Funeral Home Caucus.
Really?
Very strong bipartisan. I guess the owning a funeral home gives you the time and discretionary income to serve the people of Georgia in general. But so I won't say yet if I'll have a successful bill on that, but that's something I'm working on as well. And then, of course, needs-based aid, and we're going to see if we can push the needle forward on that as well.
So we have
actually,
question.
I do almost have one more thing. It's old business, but it still is so important that I was so proud of our House and Senate delegations to be a part of the team that did pass the new ethics bill last year. At the end, we have passed that at the end of 2019, and in 2020, by the end of 2020, we passed it in spring of 2020. And then by the end of the year, we had an all new ethics appointment board. We appointed all these folks between the House and the Senate and the tax commissioner and the clerk of the Superior Court, all had appointments. And anyway, so now some of our 1-year appointments, are coming to a close. And so one of the people that the House appointed, Eric Maurer, he had a 1-year appointment and he did not wish to be reappointed. We could have done that, but he's going to another job. So the House has just appointed our alternate, Candace Walker, to serve on a 3-year term on the ethics board. She's a forensic scientist, lives out in Stone Mountain. So we're very pleased about that. And then Clerk Deborah DeBerry will be appointing a new alternate from these highly qualified, we had so many highly qualified individuals from all of DeKalb apply for that position. So the good news is that we're not making the big news with any trauma related to ethics. It's all, good things moving forward with DeKalb, making sure we have a strong ethics board to work with our DeKalb employees.
So we have a question in the chat from Calvin. It says, on a macro level, what does a future DeKalb County look like, and what are the economic drivers?
So Calvin, we are state legislators. That's a great county commission and CEO question. I'm not letting us off the hook, but what it looks like is great partnership. Just strong, standing strong from every level of government, city, county, state, school, where every form of government standing strong to and our partnerships, philanthropy, as well as corporate partnerships to continue to uplift DeKalb.
One thing I'll bring up in relation to that is one of the things we have to do is make appointments to the Metro Atlanta board. So we recently, last year, made new appointments to the ATL, which is the transit-oriented Metro Atlanta board, and so they do planning, because people, when they think, when you leave the county, you're like, oh, I'm leaving DeKalb, and people don't think about that. They need, the roads and communities go across county borders, so it's very important we have good people in place there. We're very lucky to have Howard Mosby serving us for DeKalb, and CEO Thurmond on the ATL. And then just recently, we had the responsibility of approving a new map for the Atlanta Regional Commission. And I will tell you that the DeKalb delegate, the ARC drew up one map, and then the DeKalb delegation did respond to that initial map. Representative Viola Davis helped some of us realize that DeKalb was kind of split into 4 or 5 different areas of the ARC. So we want to make sure that DeKalb could have some people that were really focused on DeKalb on the ARC. And so they listened to our feedback, and they came back with the map, so that now DeKalb will have 2 appointments. The CEO will have 2 appointments to the ARC. There'll be a person who serves Central DeKalb and then in South DeKalb. And then we do have in North DeKalb, that appointment will work with some other counties, I think with Henry County. But I think we need to follow up and make sure, CEO Thurmond is appointing people to the ARC board, and we need to make sure that they're on the macro level, that they're representing DeKalb well. So that's something, I would encourage maybe the chamber to invite the ARC and ATL people to come speak about what are they looking for DeKalb? What are, you can tell them what you need, and, and then what is their vision, and how can we work together?
No, that's a great idea. One thing that we're hopefully going to plan for next year is kind of a city summit within the DeKalb County, and bring everybody to the table. But I love the idea about the ARC and really getting everybody involved.
And if you do a city summit, I have a large portion of our district. My district is unincorporated DeKalb, so you need to make sure you need to try to include those communities too. Please.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
I have a question from Frankie Atwater. All right, head of our chamber here. So the public health emergency had an enormous impact on our small businesses, especially in DeKalb. A lot of located within our economically distressed areas. Because the recovery period may take several years, is there discussion at the state level to continue supporting business recovery efforts after the federal funds are exhausted? So is there a discussion at the state level to help continue supporting these small businesses after the federal funds are exhausted?
I have not heard of a conversation, but that would be something great to send to the governor's office. and these appointed task force that he has, Frankie. So that would be great to put that on his mind so that we can have the conversation. And if we don't have the conversation, then he can have the conversation, with his team, with his staff around that. But I have not heard of any. And it would be great to keep us the number one state for business. That would be great.
Yeah, I concur.
Well, okay. I know we have, I think, about 4 to 5 minutes left. So this is one, fun question. We're going to end it on this note. So in the county, I'm probably going to get you all in trouble with this. What is your favorite place to spend time in the county? What's one of your favorite attractions? Okay, 2. You can name 2.
Okay.
Well, I'll anyhow, I mean, there's so many, of course. You are going to get us in trouble here, but so I've already kind of alluded to this. I love being outdoors in nature. Nature heals me, and I love, getting out and moving my body after sitting at a desk all day. And so I would say there's a place near me. I live up near Emory University, and I'm really blessed to live close enough to a trail called the South Fork Conservancy Trail, where we can walk about a quarter of a mile from our home over to this trail and just walk our dog along the creek. And then we come back along the Emory campus and then come back through our neighborhood. And it's been just such a blessing, especially during the pandemic, to be able to have that place to easily escape to. So that would be my number 1. And then my number 2 would be downtown Oakhurst. I love Oakhurst. That's such a vibrant community, so many great restaurants. They have a little plaza there that's a great place for people to gather. And they have so many wonderful community events and great schools. I will give a shout out. Oakhurst Elementary was one of the 8 new blue ribbon schools, and that the Department of Education just announced yesterday, Georgia Department of Education. So yeah, so those would be my 2 favorite places. Yeah. I mean, I'm getting in trouble because I'm on the Emory Village Alliance Board. I love Emory Village too, but right now we need to get I love it so much, but we need to bring back some businesses to the village too, so it can be as vibrant as Oakhurst is right now.
And that is the economic development piece.
Yes,
definitely.
it is. Yes, it is.
And Senator Anderson?
So for me, of course, Arabian Mountain Trail, and Pinola's next door, but my district is Arabian Mountain, so definitely there. And I have, years ago when I moved to Georgia, I've only lived in DeKalb County. Can I say that? I've been in Georgia 27 years, almost 28, and I've only lived in DeKalb. That's how much I love DeKalb. Years ago, there was a small area that was very, very warm. And now they've revitalized it, giving it a little more life. And I just still love it. I love Kirkwood. I love Kirkwood. So Arabian Mountain and Kirkwood, East Lake area. So I'm pretty, I love it. So.
Well, we know DeKalb County has some amazing areas. It's just a vibrant county full of different communities, diverse. And as we continue to talk about economic and workforce development, I think you all gave us some good talking points, some things we need to take back to the chamber, some things we need to do from the Government Affairs Committee to continue to advocate. I always encourage people to know who your state legislators are. So many people do not know who your representative is and your state senator. You can easily find that on the My Voter page, the Secretary of State. And that's so important. I encourage everyone as individuals, even if you're wherever your businesses are located, know who represents you on the state level. And so as we close this out, I want to thank everybody for joining us. I think 11:55, we were right on time. And so if you all hold on, we're going to have closing remarks from Frankie and Siobhan, and they're going to jump you back to the stage. If you all go back, to the main area. And thank you guys so much. Openstates.org is good as well to look up your information. Thank you so much, Representative Evans and Senator Anderson, for your time. I know you all are busy, and let us know how we can continue to support you all next year.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
you,
having me. Thank you for
Michelle.
having me.
Yes, it was wonderful to be with you.
All right. Thank you.